Hey folks, welcome back to another HB Gaming GameLINK video. Thanks for joining me. Today we are on the run. We're going to be making our way out of town and try to watch our backs as we explore the crazy game that is Mantis Falls. Hey folks, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. If you are new to the channel and you don't know who I am, but you should by now, my name is Matt, and as I said at the outset, today we have a review for you. It has been something I've been wanting to do for a while about this game, which I just cannot stop raving about. This is a game called Mantis Falls by Distant Rabbit Games. It is a small, little, unassuming box, as you can see here, but do not let its size fool you. I can tell you right now, there is a lot of game going on in here. I'm going to go through some of the bells and whistles of this one. By all means, if you've played this one, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but we'll come back at the end and talk about final thoughts, wrap up, that sort of stuff as well. Mantis Falls, to give you a bit of an overview of the game, I guess, is effectively a 2 to 3 player social deduction game that uses a varied mechanic system, things like that. It is effectively... I will preface this review by saying that I have yet to play a 3-player game of Mantis Falls. However, there is a ton of stuff going on in this box, as I said at the outset. Effectively, the objective of the game is to get to the end and get out of town alive with your fellow witness. Unless you're not playing as a witness, you're actually playing as an assassin and you are trying to, well, put your friend in the ground. You've been hired by the mob to whack the witness to stop them from talking. This is a game that uses action programming mechanics. There is hidden information, social deduction. There is I guess it's how do I put it? It uses hidden information, social deduction, action card programming, all of that in a seamless way to create a game that is full of intrigue, suspense, and deep strategy. And that is one of the many reasons why I love it. Thematically, this game has theme in spades. The theming is perfect for what it is trying to achieve. The sepia tones of all the components, I absolutely love. I'll talk a bit more about those in a little while, but the actual theme of this game, the fact that you are effectively a witness who saw something they shouldn't have seen and now have to get out of Dodge, is a great setup, and it provides a sense of urgency for you to actually maneuver your way down the board. Of course, the reverse of this is if you draw an assassin card at the start of the game, in which case you are playing a competitive game, but the other player doesn't know that yet, and that is some of the beauty of just, I mean, that alone, if you haven't played this and that little tidbit of information I've just given you hasn't intrigued you enough to try it out, you're not a serious gamer as far as I'm concerned. When I saw this on Kickstarter and got the basic premise of what it was about, it was trying to be a game that allowed for the social interaction, social deduction games like Secret Hitler, etc. But for 2 people? What? That was nuts to me. I couldn't figure out how that would work. I mean, usually you need a massive group for this thing. How is the game gonna go on for a potentially 90-minute runtime when there's just 2 players playing the game and there's hidden information? I mean, surely that's gonna be a bit naff. I was very wrong. But look, let's talk about the components for this one. I think the game itself, the core gameplay and the mechanics, the cards, it's effectively a card game with hand management, which is fine. The cards themselves, the card stock is a nice card stock. The artwork on the cards is like a little hand-drawn pictographs depicting symbolism that alludes to what the card's actions actually are. They are absolutely fantastic. The mat that comes with the game, again, I am reviewing a Kickstarter version, so I don't know if all of these components are going to be in the retail, but the play mat that came with it was this beautiful material, not a neoprene, and actually woven, stitched piece of cotton material playmat that you can fold out and folds up really, really easily. The pieces, the meeples and the other components, the player boards, we got a Kickstarter version that has the upgraded player boards in 3D wood printed and turned and etched material timber, which is fantastic. The rulebook itself is one of the best rulebooks I have come across in recent years. It is in depth and it talks about one rulebook that talks about the base game, the expansion in the box, the full circle, the Under the Rose, and also the Triad, which is a 3-player game. It's seamless. It is one of the best written rulebooks I've seen in a long time. It explains all the components and aspects of the game, including the last gasp mechanic. Along with that, there is another little mini rulebook in there, which is sort of a card anthology that explains what all the cards do, their frequency in the deck, all that sort of stuff. And it's definitely worth a look before you play, so you can understand a bit about the cards that you're going to come up and play. That also has a comic book panel that sort of prefaces the main game, sort of a prelude or a prologue before you actually start gameplay. So it is something that really helps with the immersion of the theme, and I love it. The little tokens, the movers that you move across the board as you move down the road, beautiful art noir, film noir style. It's fantastic. It speaks to the theme in spades. The buttons, I don't mind the buttons. I do like them in terms of the theme. I think that's a great nice little nod. Did they need to be buttons? I mean, look, you could use anything. But I think having the 3D elements there, again, I'm a tactile person. If you've watched the channel, you'll know that. So being able to have those physical pieces to move around, tactile feel, the wood timber is fantastic. They're beautifully made, really quite spectacular. And then of course there's the bags to contain everything. There's little Hessian cotton bags that you can use to actually keep all the different cards, components. They're all screen printed and labeled, so you know exactly where everything goes. It's a really nice way to keep everything in check. I did, my one gripe with this, I did have to Google and sort of figure out how to actually pack everything back in the box. And luckily Distant Rabbit Games did release a Kickstarter update with a video showing exactly how to do that in the best way possible, so it all fits nice and neat and there's no bowing, misshapening on the box. Bearing in mind too, that all of the cards that are contained herein, and I think there's over 200 cards plus the board plus everything else, all the other bits and pieces, the Kickstarter exclusives, they are all sleeved in this set, in this box, and it sits perfectly flush. So go Distant Rabbit for working out a packing method to get it all in there. Nice and easy, it's fantastic. Let's have a look at some of the mechanics, the likes and dislikes for the mechanics of the game. I mean, at its core, when you start the game, you have, in the 2-player game, 3 cards, 2 cards that say Witness in terms of role and 1 card that says Assassin. So for a 2-player game, there is always a chance that there's 2 witnesses trying to get out of town. But of course, how well do you trust your opponent? So in the core, if you have 2 witnesses on the board, you're effectively playing a cooperative game, but you don't know that. And there has been times where I've played this game where the witnesses have taken each other out right at the end of the game because they just didn't trust one another. Trust is so important, but how far will you go when you know the other person could very well want to stab you in the back at a moment's notice? So mechanics-wise, the hidden role aspect obviously is brilliantly done. The fact that you have, you just never quite know what the other person is thinking unless you are an assassin. If you get dealt the assassin card, you know exactly what game you're playing, you know exactly what the objective is, and that's literally to stop the other person from reaching the end and kill them off. You could do that from the outset, but if you strike too soon, they're likely to call in a hit and wipe your ass out. So the hidden role mechanic works very, very well in this game. The action programming step, where you both as players get to program your movement, or program your actions that you take when you're resolving an event, is very, very clever in that it only allows you to play, you can play as many cards as you like, but they all have to be from the same suit. And there's 5 different suits in the game. But if you can't play cards from separate suits, they all have to be from the same suit, which means you have to be very particular about the cards that you keep in your hand. The conserve energy mechanic I really like, because you're able to then burn a card from your hand, place it in the conserved energy slot, and if that board fills up with 4 conserved energy cards, you can take those back, discard them all, and use that to heal yourself. But The drawback is any card you put in conserved energy can be picked up by the other player when they refill their hand of cards. So there is a bit of risk versus reward there, and I dig that because you just don't know whether or not that person's going to use that card against you, and it's just fantastic. The hidden information on the events card. Now, this is something that I thought was fantastic. When you draw an event that is seen, it's common information, it's played face up to the table, everyone knows what's going on. But when you draw a hidden event, only you get to understand exactly what's going to happen. While you can't change the outcome, i.e. we're all going to take wounds, but I get to decide how it goes, how you get to that point doesn't necessarily have to be what's on the card. You can say whatever you like, you can lie about whatever you like, as long as the outcome remains true if, for whatever reason, you fail the challenge on the card. So having that information, being able to process that and go, right, okay, how can I use this to my advantage, is really, really quite, it just adds to that intrigue, because you never really know if that other person who's telling you about that hidden information is the real deal or is trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And there's a lot of those hidden events that literally say nothing happens, the other player just loses 3 wounds. How do you justify that? How do you explain that away if you're not an assassin and just say, look, I'm sorry, that's just the way the hand was dealt, the card was dealt. The modular board as well. So when you're making your way through the road is always going to be different because it is a variable setup. There are 5 cards of each. The sunset, the night, the dark. There's 5 cards of each, and so the road is made up differently every time you play, and there's ambushes, people went in the dark to cause trouble. There's phone booths where you can call in hits. It is just a fantastic little game of movement around the board, and it looks fantastic when it's set up on the table as well. I think in terms of likes for me, for Mantis Falls, I knew I would like the game. The whole idea of a concept of a social deduction game for 2 people intrigued the hell out of me, as I said before, but at the same time, I did not know the execution was going to be this good. I think, for me, we played the base game a couple of times. I think we went through it maybe 3 times before we put in the full circle, and we just thought, you know what, let's go for it. Now, the full circle expansion, to me, is Mantis Falls. The base game is okay, it's great, we love it, we really got into it, but the full circle expansion adds so much more content with only a handful of cards, and just makes the game, just takes it to another level. And to me, the full circle expansion, that's the way the game was designed. It even says in the rulebook, this is Mantis Falls in its truest form, and you should do this as soon as possible to get the best experience. That's the most accurate thing I can say about this game. Get that full circle expansion in as soon as you can, because it will change the game from good to great to amazing to fantastic. The Under the Rose expansion, I did dig it. I sort of got what that was trying to do, and it obviously added a mechanic because you've got helpers and things that you then have to pay off before the end of the road. Otherwise, you obviously be doing yourselves a disservice. But I found that there's so much strategy in just the full circle in the base game anyway. Does the Under the Rose thing need to be there? It's very much an advanced game, so I think you need to play through the full circle quite a few times to really get your head around what you're potentially going to pull, how you're going to use those cards before you jump into the Under the Rose thing, because it is a whole nother level, a whole nother echelon once again. Now the Triad, as I said, the Triad expansion, which allows for 3 players, so you've got a witnesses and a bystander each round, I haven't experienced because I've just been playing this with my wife. One of the best things I can say about this is my wife and I play this on the regular. It hits the table all of the time, a lot of the time. It is fast becoming one of our favourite games to play as couples, and it's not marriage destroying. So I can confirm that it is not marriage destroying. It's very important to understand that this is a game where you never really know. I mean, how well do you know your partner? How do you know their tells? If you play poker with them, is there anything they give away that you might be able to use in this strategy? So I find myself looking at my hand of cards, not so much wondering how I can best use these to further my own game. I find that I use the cards to try and further, to help me understand what it is I'm up against, especially when I'm playing as a witness. It's interesting to note too, that in all the games of Mantis Falls we've played, and it must be nearly 20 now, I have never once been an assassin. which I find just crazy in terms of law of averages. Surely I would have had come across one, but there's 2 witness cards, 1 assassin card. I've never once been an assassin. So when I finally get a chance to be an assassin, I'll let you know how that goes. But even only being a witness for all those playthroughs, I still dig it. It's such a good game in terms of the mechanics, in terms of the full circle expansion, which I talked about, in terms of the gameplay and the cerebral mind games that come with, well, why have they played that card? Why did they do that? Why didn't they do this instead? Why would they discard that card to conserve energy when they could have used that card the turn previous? Did they pick it up then? Did they not pick it up then? The mind-boggling and the gears that turn in your head trying to figure out why your opponent has done what they've done, if they are indeed your opponent, or whether or not they're just along for the ride as a witness. There is just so much to it. And I think part of the gameplay runtime is not so much actually moving stuff around and playing cards. It's more so the cerebral mind games that draw the game out to that 90-minute playtime. But I think you need to take that time. It's not a game you can rush through. It's a game where you need absolutely 0 distractions, because if you do find that, I mean, we've got 2 young kids, and if they're running around and they end up, wake up of an evening screaming or whatever because they're having nightmares, or they're interrupting us because they start to fight with each other, as kids do, it can be really detrimental to the quality of the game, because you need to zone in, you need to focus, and you need to make sure that you are switched on. Because if you miss one little tiny minute detail, it could be the difference between success with 2 witnesses or failure because the assassin just pulls one out from underneath you and pulls that gun. It is a very clever design. As I said, a lot of game in one small box. But in terms of the actual mechanics of the gameplay as well, love it. It's fantastic. Dislikes, things that I don't like about this game, things that I think could be done better. To be honest, there ain't a lot to not like. The artwork, the tone, the content, even the inlay on the box art, the inlay on the lid has a map of the town. The inlay on the reverse of the box is red. As you can see here, it's red, but on the side it's got a little distant rabbit in the corner, which you'll just see now in an unboxing video. There's not a lot to hate. This game has so much in spades. It is, for a game for couples or even for 3 players, there is just so much to unpack here, and you will be playing it multiple times to really appreciate it, especially once that full circle thing goes in. I will say one thing that I think is probably to the game's detriment. If you are a person who is, I want to play a game like Catan where I'm done in 45 minutes to an hour, or it's my turn, move on, you're going to hate this. This is not a game where you can play it at pace. You need to take your time, as I said before. And I think the learning curve and the time you would take to really get to know the game in terms of being able to play it at a proper level, at a level where you can really enjoy it, you'll need to take that time. The learning curve is quite steep. And I think that's probably potentially to the detriment for those people that really aren't into the hobby. If you're a seasoned veteran gamer and you're really into the gaming hobby and the gaming world that we know and love, you will really appreciate this, because there is so much going on here. If you're someone who wants to play a bit of Risk but wants to play a game of Risk in 30 minutes, you're going to hate this. You're going to absolutely hate it, because it is a slow burn that when it reaches its apex, holy shitballs, man, be ready for a ride. In terms of summing up, in terms of final thoughts, Mantis Falls is one of my favourite games of the last year. We're going to keep playing it, and the more we play it, the more we find little nuances of how to better and one-up each other in my wife and I's relationship. Charlotte, our junior gamer, wants to learn to play. I don't know how we'll go there, because obviously there is a lot of backstabbing and things going on in this game. It is not for the faint of heart in terms of social deduction. I think this is probably a harder game to work out than something like Secret Hitler, when there's potentially 10 people sitting around the table. The slow burn element, the design, the sepia tones, the film noir, the theming, there is nothing to hate about this game. If you're a seasoned veteran gamer, as I said, you're going to love this. Please, please, please do yourself a favour, check it out, pick up a copy. I am trying to get a playthrough done. Unfortunately, my wife is very much unavailable to do playthroughs because she's a nurse and she works her butt off. So thank you, Hunt, we appreciate it. Much love to my wife for that. But Mantis Falls is one of the most successful Kickstarter games that we backed in terms of what hits the table and how it plays. This is, I cannot say more about it than you need to experience it for yourself. If you're around and you're one of our gamer army and you want to jump on board, you can always come around, make a time, book an appointment, and we will teach you this game. I will sit down and teach you this game because it is just something else entirely. Out of the box. I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be as good as it was. I still had some surprises. There is always a surprise with this game. Mantis Falls is definitely worth a look, and as I said, I've said it time and again, I've just been raving now and rambling. It's definitely something to behold, something to enjoy, something to really get your teeth stuck into. Have you played Mantis Falls? Have you experienced the Triad version? What are your thoughts on the 3-player mode? How did that work for you? Have you played it as a 2-player game as a couple? How did you fare? Have you won? Have you lost? Have you tied? I want to hear your thoughts on this one. If you have any questions about Mantis Falls, you can pop them in the comments below as well. Happy to get back to them and answer them for you. It is a fantastic game. Hopefully we'll get a playthrough done very soon. It's one of our favourite couples games, if not our most favourite couples game, especially for the last 12 months. It's such a fantastic experience. Definitely something worth checking out. Thank you, folks, for watching and getting this far. Thank you for smashing that subscribe button, I should say. Big thanks to all our Patreons as well. Especially a very special thank you and congratulations to a couple of our Patreons, Ben and Shell Wood, on their birth of their first little fella, Bailey. Congratulations to you both. You've done so well, and I look forward to finally meeting him, hopefully in the not too distant future. Folks, thank you very much for sticking with us. Thank you very much for listening to my rambling. We'll see you very soon for more crazy board game content. Until then, be nice to each other, stay social, play more games. We'll see you back at the table very soon. Till then, it is bye for now.